Well, it's almost time to let the games begin. The 2024 Summer Olympic Games from Paris, that is. My guest today is an award-winning sports journalist who will host CBC's coverage of the Games for one last time. Join us next on Brio TV, the podcast. Hi, and welcome to a Faster, Higher, Stronger podcast. I'm Bill Brio. My guest today has medaled for years as the host of CBC's Olympic Game coverage. He's back at it again July 26th to August 11th as host of CBC's Olympic Games Paris 2024. He'll host the afternoon show, Bell Paris Prime. And right after, he follows up by once again hosting CBC's coverage of the Paralympic Games. That's to be held August 28th to September 8th. And then, after 40 years with CBC, the Canadian Screen Award and Gemini Award-winning sports broadcaster has announced that he will retire from hosting the Games. I'm talking, of course, about Scott Russell, who has covered 16 Olympic Games for CBC, including 6 as host. He's also led the network's coverage of the Pan Am Games, 6 Commonwealth Games, 2 FIFA World Cups, and 2 FIFA Women's World Cups. He's also been a host and rinkside reporter for 14 years on Hockey Night in Canada. Now, after the Games, he leaves to become the 5th Chancellor of Nipissing University in North Bay, Ontario, where he holds an honorary doctorate. So here he is, therefore, Dr. Scott Russell. Let's get right at this. The Olympic Games are just a few weeks away. When do you leave for Paris?
I go on Wednesday, the 17th of July, so a week tomorrow. So
My goodness.
Looking forward to it.
Did you have you been over to scout the facilities in Paris already?
No, I haven't personally been over there. We've had some people over there, and some people are on the ground right now. Most of our people, some of the technical side and some of our really key production people went over on July the 4th. So they're getting ready feverishly. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Obviously, we're talking to you about your great career. My God, all these Olympic Games that you've covered. You're going to be in Paris for the Olympic Games, Paris 2024, July 26th to August 11th. And then the Paralympic Games, August 28th to September 8th. And then you've announced that you're going to retire from coverage, right?
I'm going to step away, Bill, from my hosting duties at CBC Sports. I've been here 39 years and counting. So, after the Paralympic Games, I'm going to step away from my primary hosting duties. I think you might see me pop up every once in a while on some special events and some skiing events, whatever. Yeah.
Well, that is great. Always a welcome voice and face on so many events, even hockey and football and everything else. And Scott, is it true your career has been at CBC Sports your entire career in broadcasting, right?
Yeah, my entire career has been with CBC, and I'm going to say 38 and a half of those 39 years with CBC Sports. I began at CBC Charlottetown in the summer of 1985, and I was a news reporter. And the first thing I covered upon landing in PEI, Bill, was I was sent up to Summerside from Charlottetown to cover the Premier's speech on the recent outbreak of potato blight. And that was in the summer of 1985. And the Premier at the time was a guy by the name of Jim Lee, really great guy. And I ran into him at the Linkletter Hotel in advance of the press conference on potato blight. And he said, "Hi, buddy, who are you?" And I said, "I'm the new guy at CBC, and I'm here to cover the Premier's press conference on the potato light outbreak, and he says, "I know, I'm the premier." So it was really fun way to begin. And then shortly after that, I moved to be the sports reporter and the sports anchor at CBC Charlottetown.
And what was it that brought you to Charlottetown?
Well, you know what? I upon graduating from the journalism school at Western in London, I somehow managed to secure a place in the CBC summer training program. This was in early spring 1985, I guess. And there was one graduate student from the journalism schools across the country. So there was somebody from King's College in Halifax. There was somebody from Saskatchewan. There was somebody from Carleton University. There was somebody from Western. Anyway, at the end of the 2-week summer training program with CBC News, we were offered the chance to have an internship at anywhere in the country that had a CBC location of our choosing, with the exception, Bill, of Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver, all the big places.
Right.
So you had to choose a smaller location. I didn't know what I was going to go do. I went home, talked to my dad, and he said, "You know what? Choose Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. It's small. It's a provincial capital. It has lots going on culturally. And when you go there, you won't be ripping and reading copy. And for somebody else, you'll be getting right into it." And he was right. For day one, I was involved.
Your dad, very wise decision. Did he have a particular insight into that region?
You know what? We had spent some time in the summers in Prince Edward Island. Loved the place. And my dad had a very good friend, a colleague. He was a medical doctor, a colleague who had a place in a summer place just outside Fredericton, New Brunswick. And, many summers we would go. And when we were visiting my dad's colleague, we would go to Prince Edward Island. And that was a part of that. We loved it there.
Well, it sounds like an ideal start. I just recently moved to Orangeville, Sandra and I here, and you can't really compare Orangeville to Charlottetown, but I'm really enjoying being in the middle of rush minute. It's right. It's pretty good to dial it down a bit on some levels. So I'm sure that was a wonderful way into the business. Then you went to Western, which is a big sports school in Canada. Were you very involved in sports as a university student?
Well, you know what? I worked for the Gazette, the school newspaper, and I did some sports writing for the school newspaper, and I also worked at Radio Western doing sports reports at Radio Western. And the thing was, when I went to journalism school at Western, I had done my undergraduate degree there. I played for the Mustangs basketball team for about 2 weeks until they cut me, Bill. But, I loved university sports. I loved following the Mustangs football team. Jamie Bone was the quarterback at the time.
Wow.
Heck Crichton Award winner. He was absolutely fantastic guy. Yeah. And as it turned out, when I did my graduate degree at Western, there were 40 students in the journalism program. It was a 1-year master's program. And I was the only student in that program that was at all interested in sports journalism. And what was great about that, and it was fortuitous for me, is that Jamie Bone at that time had become the sports information director at Western University. And, so I got in touch with him. He paved the way for me, got me onto the sidelines of the Mustangs, and I started covering the Western Mustangs football team while I was a journalism student. And it kind of blossomed from there. I love the color of sports journalism. I love the stories. I love the action because I was a sports fan and I saw so much potential. And I remember Jamie Bone Larry Haler, who was the coach of the football team at that time, really took me under their wing and paved the way for me.
Wow, what a great coincidence of talent merging at one place at the same time. In my memory, we're similar in age, Scott. I'm a few years older. I think I was born in 1957, and the Mustang, Western was very much renowned for their journalism. I think it was like either Carlton, Western, or Ryerson, right? That was the places to go if you wanted to pursue this.
Absolutely. And I had been, Bill, by the way, I'm born in 1958, so I'm not far behind you.
Okay.
And I just celebrated my 66th birthday. I'm traveling Route 66.
Happy birthday. That's a good route to be on. I just got off that ramp. I got on the off ramp recently, so there you go.
But you know what? I started my working life as a secondary school teacher in Owen Sound, Ontario.
Oh my goodness!
And I had a degree from Teachers College, Althouse College at Western, and I coached basketball, coached volleyball, taught history at West Hill Secondary School in Owen Sound for about 2.5 years, and then I was writing op-ed pieces for the Owen Sound Sun-Times.
Wow.
And they were, with a more political bent. I kind of was interested in politics at that time. And then I became aware of this 1-year graduate program in journalism at Western. And the dean of the journalism program was Peter Deborah.
Oh my goodness.
Who was the anchor at Global News.
Yes, absolutely.
I was familiar with Peter Deborah. I was familiar with Andy McFarlane, who had written for the Toronto Telegram and all that. And so I said, wow, I would love to get into this program. And what was interesting about Western's journalism program, Bill, was that they wanted students that were not directly from undergraduate programs. They wanted someone to have some life experience other than in journalism.
So this was tailor-made for you, Scott.
Yeah. So here I was. I brought my teaching experience. We also had people in the program one was an RCMP officer. We had people who had worked in public relations in the medical realm. I think we had a medical doctor that was in that program. We had a Catholic priest who went into that program.
Wow.
So I had to write an essay to get in. I got into the program and only had 40 students, and it was tailor-made for somebody who had some life experience and wanted to expand their world. It was great.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a wonderful idea. And even the priest would have almost doubled his income getting into journalism.
I would not much more than that.
Not much more than that, Scott. No. Back with Scott Russell after this short message. Stream now, pay never. That's the slogan at Pluto TV, the always free ad-supported streaming service that delivers hundreds of live linear channels and thousands of titles on demand. You can watch Big Brother 24/7 on demand on Pluto TV and even access the live feed from inside the Big Brother house if that's your idea of a good time. Looking for more trainable experience? There's a whole kennel full of episodes of The Dog Whisperer with Cesar Millan, or even classic episodes of Don Johnson's cop series from the late 90s, Nash, Bridges. Remember Cheech Marin and that, huh? There are tons of movies with new titles every month, and don't forget, Pluto is always adding channels. New this month are 2 new Western channels, The Wild Wild West and Classic Movie Westerns. You can watch a whole heap of classic odors, including Gunsmoke, Rawhide with Clint Eastwood, and even The Lone Stranger. And remember, Pluto TV is free and can be easily accessed and streamed across mobile, web, and connected TV devices. Try Pluto TV. It's out of this world. Time once again to speak with Emily Gagne from Hollywood Suite. Emily, what do you got for us this summer?
Well, we've got a little something for everyone, including the exclusive Canadian premiere of The Contestant. I don't know if you've heard of this movie, Bill.
I have heard of it. This is audacious. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's the true story of this Japanese man that was thrown into a reality show without knowing he was being filmed, and he spent a year naked in a room trying to survive on coupons.
Wow. This is like, it's the real Truman Show without clothing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this movie goes through the whole process back in the day. This happened in the 90s, but then we also talk to him today and see what he's up to. And it just talks about sort of how corrosive reality TV can be. And it's a movie that's played a lot of festivals. So if you're looking to see it, it's coming to Hollywood Suite July 1st, and it'll be on demand anytime you want to watch it.
I got to see that. All right. What else do you have for us this summer?
Well, if you're looking for some more traditional movie watching, we have what's called a Revved Up Summer. So every night in July and August at 9 p.m., we have a different high-octane movie featuring planes, trains, automobiles, etc. So we've got all the Fast and the Furious movies, but also we have, movies like Jackie Brown that have car scenes that are maybe not as high-octane, but are still really memorable.
Love Jackie Brown. Well, there it is. Get revved up with Hollywood Suite this summer. Thanks a lot, Emily.
Thanks, Bill.
Here he is again, CBC's Olympic Games Paris 2024 host, Scott Russell. Well, what a wonderful start then. And then CBC Sports. So your Olympic coverage is incredible, and Pan Am Games and everything else. Obviously your first jobs were probably covering specific things. And I know you're very involved with gymnastic coverage at the Olympics, but where was your first segue into covering sports at CBC?
Well, when I was a reporter in Charlottetown, and then subsequently the sports anchor in Charlottetown, we used to have large, sports segments on the supper hour shows, Bill.
Yeah.
So I would have 10 minutes a night or 15 minutes a night for sports on the supper hour program in Charlottetown. And I covered everything from harness racing at the Charlottetown Driving Park to the Postal Curling Championships in O'Leary, PEI.
Okay.
I would cover the Island Junior Hockey League when the Charlottetown Abbeys took on the Western Capitals in Summerside. I literally, the stock car racing at Oyster Bed Bridge,
wow.
Everything. And, I really got a break by being able to go to the Canada Games in 1987 in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And I covered at those Canada Games the alpine skiing and the cross-country skiing. And, we used to be big into the Canada Games in CBC. Fantastic experience. It was network sports. I was working with people like Ernie Afghanis and Ted Reynolds and Steve Armitage and Terry Leibel and all of those giants of our industry. And it was fantastic eye-opener for me that was my first foray into CBC network sports.
Steve Armitage, he always looked like he could just put you through a wall, right?
He was a big guy. He was a big guy. He was the quarterback at St. Mary's University when he attended there.
Wow.
And had the big booming voice, right?
Yeah.
But what a wonderful friend he became, Steve, and we still keep in touch on a fairly regular basis. A wonderful, wonderful guy and a great mentor in broadcasting.
Did you have other heroes in terms of sports broadcasting? And as a fan, just as a viewer, were there even in the U.S. or Canada that you thought, wow, there's a career or there's a guy I want to emulate?
Yeah, I mean, well, like without doubt, I have to say that Brian Williams was somebody that I really admired. And although I worked for many years, Bill, at Hockey Night in Canada. Mm-hmm. The person that really kind of piqued my interest was Brian, and when he was the host of Sports Weekend and the host of the Olympic Games, and that was that was where I wanted to go in terms of my sports broadcasting. It ended up that it took a little bit of time to get there because I did go to Hockey Night in Canada prior to really getting into Olympic broadcasting. But
Mm-hmm.
Brian, I would say, Don Whitman, wonderful play-by-play caller for track and field and CFL football. And I had a tremendous admiration, and because I had worked in the Maritimes, for Danny Gallivan on Hockey Night in Canada, and I got to meet Danny and actually interview him a couple of times, and that was somebody that I really, really admired.
Absolutely. And I've spoken to Brian, who actually had him on as a podcast guest. He upon his retirement, and many years ago, I would work for TV Guide, the little magazine, and I would occasionally be asked to go on CKFH or a Toronto station, The Fan, when it started, to talk TV. I did one of these reports, and I got a call at the office from Brian Williams out of the blue. And he literally was calling to say, Bill, it's Brian Williams. It's 10 o'clock here in Toronto, 9:30 where you are, and he went out of his way to say, hey, I heard what you did on the radio and I really liked it. And I was just flabbergasted that he would have gone and taken that step and did that. So I never forgot that act of kindness, and pretty classy, right?
Oh, very classy. And you know what? I see him every year when I host the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame induction, and we give out the Brian Williams Media Award. And he's always so gracious. He remembers everybody that he's ever met or interviewed. And unfailingly, Bill, and I received a call from him a week ago, and he will call, I know, several times before I go to Paris. And it's always to wish me the best. And he says, I know that you'll do a great job. And he is an unfailingly kind guy who's been so helpful throughout my career.
It sure seems that way. Well, that's lovely to hear. So let's talk a bit about Paris. You're on your way in a week. These games are going to be very interesting. Every Olympics, there's different athletes that emerge. We've heard of Andre DeGrasse or different people, but there's always a new, people in different sports. Are there some that you've got an eye on that you're really anxious to see how they fare from Canada?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the first one probably is pretty obvious, Bill, and that's the swimmer, the 17-year-old Summer McIntosh from Toronto. She's just on the verge of, setting a new bar in terms of standard for Olympic performance. She definitely will be a medal threat in certainly 4 events, perhaps 5 or 6 events. And I would say that she has serious gold medal aspirations in 3 of those events, which would be unheard of for a Canadian to win a gold medal in 3 separate events at one Olympic Games. She's a fantastic swimmer. Jill Horsted, her mom swam at the Olympic Games in 1984 in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Summer smashing world records. She's been world champion 4 times. I really look for her to do great things. And, in track and field, I love track and field. And we have an 800-meter runner in this country by the name of Marco Arop from Edmonton. He's a young guy. I think he's only 23 or 24 years of age. Marco is the world champion at 800 meters, which is, it's one of the toughest events in track and field because it's right there at the intersection of being a sprint and an endurance race.
Yeah.
And the field is incredibly deep. But Marco's this big guy, and he's still figuring it out whether he wants to run from the back or whether he wants to lead all the way. But he has tremendous capability, and I think he's got a shot at a gold medal in the 800 meters. So many more that I could tell you about. I'm really excited to follow the progress of Ellie Black, the gymnast from Halifax. She's going to her 4th Olympic Games. She's the greatest gymnast in Canadian history, certainly on the women's side. Great admiration from Cal Schufelt, that Olympic gold medal champion from 2004. But Ellie is 28 years of age, will be among the oldest gymnasts in the field, if not the oldest. And the one thing that she lacks in her career is an Olympic medal. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she progresses. And I'll give you one more, Bill. I know I'm dominating this question.
No, please.
But I'm very excited about the Paris Games because they will be the first gender equal games in Olympic history. And by that, I mean there will be as many medal events for women as there are for men for the first time in Olympic history. And when Paris last hosted the Games back in 1924, there were 3,100 athletes, and 2,950 of those athletes were men. 135 or something were,
wow.
were women. And now we're equal, right? And the final event of these Olympic Games, the final race in athletics, will be the women's marathon. And, women weren't allowed to run the marathon at the Olympics until 1984 in Los Angeles. So this is the 40th anniversary. The route is going to trace the route of the Women's March on Versailles of 1789 and the French Revolution, a turning point in the French Revolution. And the women will receive their medals at the closing ceremony. And there is one Canadian woman in that race. Her name is Melindy Elmore from Kelowna, British Columbia. She's 44 years of age, a mother of 2, and last appeared or appeared at the Olympic Games for the first time in Athens in 2004 as a 1,500-meter runner. She's a fantastic story, and my colleague and I, Brenda Irving, have documented her progress and her struggles to get to the start line of Paris 2024. Really great story.
That is so inspiring. I definitely want to see that. That's fantastic. The host country often does well in games. Do you see Paris, the French, having more of a chance to own the podium this time?
Yeah, I do. I think the French have some tremendous athletes in track and field. And because of they're the host, the team from France will get an entry into every team sport. So their men's and women's rugby sevens teams are going to be great. Their basketball teams will have a shot. Their soccer teams will have a shot. And they're going to win probably a lot of medals in team sport. So I think the French will have a great Olympic Games. They also have the world record holder in the decathlon, a guy by the name of Kevin Mayer. Now, he's got a bit of an injury, but he will certainly be a major rival of Canada's Damien Warner, who is the reigning Olympic champion in the decathlon. But to answer your question, yes, I think the French are going to have a great Games.
I hear the French president, Emmanuel Macron, he's in a new throwing event. He's going to be throwing the election.
I love it.
Sorry.
I love it.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Every Olympics lately, there's like been a new event. Is there anything new this year that's being added to the Olympic Games?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see for the first and for the only time the sport of breaking. We thought of it as break dancing for a long, long time.
Wow.
But we're going to see breaking. And this will be the one time that it appears. It's not going to be in Los Angeles in 2028. And it's kind of exciting. It's certainly a new generation sport. And Canada's got one breaker, and he's really good. He's the Pan American Games champion. His name is Phil Kim. He's from Vancouver, and his handle is Phil Wizard, because every breaker has a different handle. But he's a really engaging guy and a very, very good athlete. What he can do is amazing. So that's going to be interesting to see breaking at these games. And by the way, surfing will also be there. We had it at the last games, but surfing is going to be in Tahiti, if you can believe it.
Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's very exciting, Scott, even in the Winter Games, the half pipe, all these new events that obviously, I guess, appeal especially to younger viewers, but they're just so visual and perfect for television, right?
Yeah, I mean, and skateboarding, breaking, I think, will be great on TV. Sport climbing is still there. But I got to tell you, though, Bill, I mean, to me, I know I'm a bit old school, but I still love a big athletics meet, track and field, and the 100 meters. And in this case, the 100 meters for the men is going to be spectacular. The 100 meters for the women is going to be spectacular. The 1,500 meters race for the men and the women will be unbelievable, because the participants, when you take into account Jakob Ingebrigtsen from Norway, the Viking, taking on Josh Kerr from Great Britain, and there's been some trash talking going on. We're going to see Andre de Grasse of Canada in the 200 meters, Noah Lyles of the United States. Great characters.
We'll have more with Scott in a moment. Well, the weather outside is frightfully hot. So time for a little Super Channel and chill with the return of Christmas in July. If you can't wait till winter to binge Christmas movies, Super Channel Heart and Home has you covered. They've got titles such as Toying with the Holidays, starring Chad Michael Murray as a model train enthusiast and Cindy Busby as a workaholic single mom. And what workaholic single mom doesn't want to hook up with a model train nerd? Yes, these former classmates are about to take that last train to Hartsville. Am I right, ladies? There are other intriguing festive titles this month, including 'Twas the Text Before Christmas. This one features veteran Canadian actress Jane Eastwood as an accidental matchmaker. Many of these holiday films are shot in Canada, feature plenty of Canadian stars, and why not? Where else are you going to find plenty of snow and ice, or at least hockey rinks for crews to scoop up some white stuff for a shoot in July or August? Not into Christmas? There's plenty of non-holiday dramas and docu-series on Super Channel Fuse, one of 4 channels on the all-Canadian service. And remember, Super Channel is available via most cable providers, as well as streaming live and on demand with Amazon Prime Video channels, Apple TV Plus, and Fubo. And we're back with Scott Russell. Do you think DeGrasse has a shot?
I do think he's got a shot. You know, here's the thing about Andre DeGrasse. He's the consummate competitor. He lies in the weeds a little bit. His season always starts relatively slowly, and then it comes to a fever pitch in many ways. And you know what? I remember meeting him for the first time in Moncton, New Brunswick at the trials for the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And, you know, people in athletics didn't think that Andre was really going to be the person to have them take the next step. And look what he's done. He's won 6 medals on the Olympic front over his games appearances. And he's going to his 3rd games. And I think he has every capability to repeat as the 200-meter champion. He is a great, great competitor.
Yeah, that's for sure. Is there any a nation boycott? I mean, obviously the invasion of Ukraine is such a harrowing event. Are Russian athletes part of these games? Is there any nation that's boycotting? Or?
Well, so far there's no nations that I know of that are going to boycott. The Russian athletes will not compete under their flag. There will be a limited number of Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes who have demonstrated that they have no affiliation with the war against Ukraine. So they'll compete as neutral athletes, and they have been capped. The number of spaces that are there for those Russian and Belarusian athletes has been capped. You know, it's a very fractious world, as you know. But, you know, I think that the Olympics still has a place, Bill, as a sort of hope that maybe for a time our dysfunctional human family can find a way to get along for 16 days and maybe put aside our differences. And that's the hope. That's the ideal. And I happen to subscribe to the ideal. So
well, it is a wondrous sight on the closing ceremonies to see all the athletes come together and march together. It's quite stirring, and it does give hope, I think. I don't know, right? It's such a thorny world. You're right, Scott. But I hope the best for these games, and that spirit is there for sure. You sound just as keen as ever, Scott. You're going to miss this, aren't you?
I will miss it, and I guess the thing is, Bill, that has allowed me to do this for such a long period of time is that I have a passion for it. As a kid, I went to summer camp and we had the mini Olympics, back when I was an 11-year-old. And I always had a sense of wonder about it, right? The torch and the flame and all of these things. And I think I've been able to keep that sense of wonder about the Olympic spectacle that it still fascinates me. And I think that these athletes are, I know that they're ordinary people and they live next door, but they're capable of such extraordinary things, right? And their performances fascinate me, and they always have. And you're right, I will miss it. I'm not going to be completely gone. I keep saying that, you still may see me pop up every now and again, but yeah.
Well, congratulations on a stellar career. You communicate your passion for it very well. And that enthusiasm is vital, really, in a host. And you seem, it's funny, with Brian Williams retiring several years ago, you still seem like the new kid. Why is now the time to sort of throttle back and step away from hosting the games?
Well, I am 66 years old. It's been a long road. I've traveled a lot for work. I've seen a lot and met so many great people. But maybe time, Bill, for some new challenges. You mentioned I'm going to be the chancellor at Nipissing University. Yeah. I'm really excited about that. I mean, it's a smallish university in North Bay, Ontario, but it's a very progressive university. And the president of the university, Dr. Kevin Walmsley, is the former head of the International Center for Olympic Studies at Western University. And I've known Kevin for a long time.
It's great.
And he, we share this love of the Olympic Games and of the Olympic process. But, he's building that university. We have at Nipissing, a fairly substantial proportion of the student population is Indigenous. We have 400 plus Indigenous students. We're doing some great research into the environment and to water quality in the Canadian North. We have a tremendous school of nursing. We have a school of education. We need both those kinds of graduates in the world today, and particularly in Northern Ontario. So I'm excited about that. I still am an honorary board member, along with Chantal Petitclerc, Rick Hansen, and Wayne Gretzky at the Paralympic Foundation of Canada, and we continue to grow parasport in the country and internationally. I'm on the board at the International Center for Olympic Studies at Western with Dr. Angela Schneider, who's doing great work there. And it's a jewel that we have that at Western and in Canada to study the Olympic Games. So I'll tell you what, and Canada Sports Hall of Fame, I'm still heavily involved with them, and Cheryl Bernard, who's doing a great job there as the president and CEO of Canada Sports Hall of Fame. So, Bill, I've got lots to look forward to, and I've had such a great foundation at CBC Sports.
Well, it sure sounds like it. And will this involve you actually living in North Bay, or are you just able to be chancellor by being at the university at different times, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I won't be moving to North Bay, but I'll be visiting North Bay on a pretty frequent basis. Mm-hmm. And I know Dr. Walmsley would like me. Obviously, I'm going to be there for the convocations, mm-hmm. But I'm going to be there to speak with alumni, to speak with potential students of the university, and I will be there, 6 or 8 times a year for sure. I'm going to sit on the board of the university, and I'm going to become an advisor to the president, which is going to be great. Yeah.
It's a big TV town too. There's so much production, Hallmark movies. There's a lot of comedies that are shot up in North Bay and Sudbury and different places too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's a thing on Netflix, a show called The Lake, which was filmed on Lake Nipissing, right? So
that's right. That was Prime Video. They had very funny. Well, I really enjoyed that show. It was terrific. Well, congrats on everything. Enjoy that, and let's see if you can get me a job at the North Bay Nugget. Put in a good word.
Perfect.
Just finally, Scott, I usually ask everyone on the podcast 3 quick questions. When you were growing up, and I'm not sure, did you grow up? Where before you went to Charlottetown? Were you living in Oshawa? Where did you grow up?
No, I was born in Oshawa and sort of spent my formative years in Pickering, Ontario, and then went overseas with my dad, who was on a traveling fellowship as a physician. We lived in England and Scotland. And then I grew up in Don Mills, Ontario, Bill, and I went to Victoria Park Secondary School in Don Mills, and I just had some great memories from there.
There you go. What was there a particular show when you were growing up as a youngster that you used to race home to see? Was there a TV show that you just loved?
You know what? I was thinking about that the other day, and there were lots of them, but I always loved Hogan's Heroes. That was the show that I loved. I mean, Colonel Robert Hogan, there was Sergeant Schultz, Colonel Klink, and LeBeau and Newkirk. And I love that show. And I love the way it started, bum, 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 bum. I love that. It was really, really great show. So I watched that every time it was on.
That would be your favorite TV theme song then, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
No, you know what? My favorite TV theme song, I tell you, it has to be, and I know it's probably pretty cliche, but the Hockey Night in Canada theme song from Dolores Claman, you know, like that was big for me, and it always sticks with me. When whenever I heard that come on, and I was so proud to work at Hockey Night in Canada and hear that, it raised the hair on the back of my neck.
It does say Canada, that theme, doesn't it? It's right up there with Bobby Gimby's Expo theme and things like that. Is there anything that you're watching right now that is on TV that you're streaming or watching that you don't want to miss?
Yeah, you know what? I watch everything on BritBox, and the things that I watched Shetland, and I watch everything on Shetland. Jimmy Perez. Then I watch Vera, and I think I'm through most of the 12 seasons or 13 seasons on Vera. And then the other one, because my wife was born near Oxford, England, and we visit Oxford all the time. So I watch Morse Mysteries, Lewis, and the one that's currently still going. I think there's another season called Endeavor, which is sort of the prequel to the Morse Mysteries, right? Which is the foundations of where Morse came from.
Yeah, the Brits do those mysteries. The characters are so memorable and vivid, so they're great shows. Good choices. Well, Scott, listen, congrats. Enjoy Paris, and viewers can see you as the host of CBC's Olympic Games Paris 2024. The afternoon show, Bell Paris Prime, from July 26th to August 11th. As well as coverage of the 2024 Paralympic Games, August 28th to September 8th. These will be your final Olympic Games as host. You don't say break a leg, I don't think, for Olympic coverage. That sounds too too drastic. But just have a wonderful time. Look forward to viewing and seeing you, Scott. You've done a great job at this. What a career. So thank you for the time to talk today, and all the best.
Thanks, Bill. Always great to speak with you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks as always to our gold medal winner in the 48-minute podcast event, producer Phil Hong. Give it up to BJ Del Conte, Paul Boudra, and all the crispy critters, as well as piano man Stephen Dudley, who performed the music you hear on this podcast. Finally, thanks to you, listener. If you enjoyed this conversation, let us know with a like or a comment at Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Bill Brio. Thank you for listening.